All right, everyone, let's go ahead and begin. So today is our last session of AI 101, except for the special guest speaker next Friday. And we're going to be going over what is sentiment analysis. So taught by me and Iris. And I'm not going to go over the teams again because I feel like it's the last session, we already know. But this is a team, yeah. And so it's the last session, as I just said. And of course, this is going to be also the last Kahoot that you have an opportunity to win points for like the raffle for small prizes and stuff. And also, as you know, the essay contest, which is a 300 to 400 word essay, barely even an essay, it's like 2 paragraphs on if you could create a piece of AI for the future, what would you create and why? And you should definitely use information that we've been teaching. You can find this information in the videos that we've posted on our YouTube channel in case you want to go back and see any of the lessons, and submit that in the link that I've been emailing out. But we can also send the link in the chat later. So that's also an opportunity to win points and also be posted on our website as a winner. And so we also have our guest speaker next Friday at 10 a.m., not 5 p.m. We have it from 10 to 11:30 a.m. He's the CEO of In Silico Medicine, and they use AI to treat the coronavirus. So it's going to be a really interesting talk, and I really suggest everyone join. So, Iris.
Okay, so a recap of last week. Last week you learned what is NLP, which stands for Natural Language Processing. The natural language processing is a branch of AI that deals with computers understanding, speaking, and writing natural language. There are a few components of NLP, such as how computers cannot read text, but they can find patterns. So we have to give computers enough data so that they can be turned into groups of numbers called matrices. NLP also counts how many times groups of words are together, which is how it helps to identify like main idea and context. There are also stop words, and these are words that don't add meaning to the text, like the words, as you can see in this word bubble here. There's a few more examples. So there are also neural networks. There's 2 parts to neural networks. There's the neuron and the networks. A neuron is a calculation that creates an output from an input, and a network is a collection of entities that work together. So how do they work? There's an input layer, which is where you enter the data, which is also called original text. And then there's the hidden layer where all the work happens. And then the output layer, which gives you the results. So you also learned some impacts of NLP, and there's things like prioritizing emergency calls, finding fake news, tracking infectious diseases, and translating lost languages.
So sentiment analysis is going to derive a lot of what we learned last week about natural language processing. So I'm sure you already see the definition, obviously, but can anyone tell me like what sentiment by itself means? Then you can probably like guess a little bit what sentiment analysis means. Just say it in the chat, I guess, if you know what the word sentiment means. But obviously, as you can see in the definition, it says sentiment analysis is a machine learning technique that trains computers to detect polarity. So someone said emotions, which is true. Sentiment is like a kind of opinion, how you feel about something, like the way you feel about something. So sentiment analysis is kind of detecting the way that people feel about something and using that to further their business or improve their products or things like that in general. So the use of sentiment analysis is really big in business because you're kind of seeing how people feel. So we can watch this quick video. I'll probably stop it early. Let me know if you can't hear it.
I can't hear it.
You can't hear it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. One sec.
Let's get started. Sentiment analysis is the process of determining
Wait, can you hear it now? Okay.
the opinion or feeling of a piece of text. We humans are pretty good at this. I can look at this tweet and immediately know that it's negative. It feels like the writer's sentiment is one of anger and disgust due to the negative wording. Companies across the world have implemented machine learning to do this automatically. It's super useful for gaining insight into customer opinions. Once you understand how the customer feels after analyzing their comments or reviews, you can identify what they like and dislike and build things like recommendation systems or more targeted marketing campaigns for them. In this demo, we're going to be building a sentiment analysis program in Python that will identify whether a movie review is positive or negative based on the text in the review. From a site called Kaggle. We'll start off by importing our dependencies. We'll import the operating system module to help us perform command line functions. Then we'll want to import the scikit-learn module, which is a machine learning library in Python with a fast learning curve. Then we'll import a helper class that will help us clean our data. Pandas helps us read our data CSV files, and NLTK will be used to remove unnecessary words from our data set. All right, so step one is to just read the data from our hard disk. We'll import the labeled training data and the testing data. Then we'll print out the first review to the command line to ensure we read the data set correctly. Once we've read in our data, step two is to clean it. That means ensure that we remove all the HTML, non-letters, and stop words.
Okay, I feel like that was enough for now. As you can see also in the, can one of you send the link to the video in the chat? Anyways, so as you can see in the graphic on the right also, you can tell the way that sentiment analysis kind of works. So say you have like a customer review, that would be your piece of text, and then use a feature extractor to like kind of find out the words that would tell how they feel about whatever they're reviewing. You take those features and then you put it in like a machine learning algorithm or whatnot to kind of gauge what the general population feels about your product. So we will do this poll later. Okay, one sec. Okay, wait, let me go to the next slide really quickly. Algorithm types in sentiment analysis, there are multiple. So first of all, there's the rule-based systems that perform sentiment analysis based on a set of manually crafted rules. So another person would have to input the rules into a machine to, for that machine to like learn. And then automatic systems are what rely on the machine itself to learn techniques to learn from the data. So it relies on the machine, not an outside person. And then hybrid systems use kind of a combination of both of these systems. So hybrid systems would use both rules from the outside person controlling the machine and also from rules from the machine itself. So Iris, can you read this slide out loud really quickly? I need to take care of something else. Iris? All right, I can keep going. So fine-grained sentiment analysis. It basically takes adjectives, like a 5-set number of adjectives of like very positive, positive, neutral, negative, and very negative to describe something. So kind of when you guys are like taking a survey for like a class or a program you just took and it gives you like 5 options, like do you agree, disagree, whatever. So this would be known as fine-grained sentiment analysis because it gives you a set amount of choices for you to choose from. So you can interpret this from like 1-star to 5-star rating or like very positive to very negative scale. So it's very specific and it doesn't give a lot of leeway to the audience or the population to describe something on their own, unlike emotion detection, which we'll go over next, but fine grain gives you a set amount of choices. So it's a lot easier for the machine to learn and gauge what people think. this is a lot in contrast to the next slide where we're going over emotion detection sentiment analysis. So emotion detection sentiment analysis, as you can tell from the name, detects emotions like happiness, frustration, anger, and sadness. And it uses lexicons, which are words that kind of describe how people feel, which are like happiness, frustration, etc. However, the downside to emotion detection sentiment analysis is basically, that people express emotions in different ways. So for example, if you were talking about a product, some people could say like, this product killed me when I was trying to use it. Like, it wasted so much time, it was so difficult. Like, that would obviously be a negative way of saying kill. But some people could also say, this product killed so much of my time, I have so much more free time now. Or like, this product is totally killing it. That would be a positive way to use the word kill. So emotion detection is a lot more difficult in the way that people can use various adjectives and, as I said, lexicons to describe things in different ways. So emotion detection, unlike the previous slide, fine-grained sentiment analysis makes it a lot harder for the machine to gauge, since you have to think a little bit more like a human and look at the context in which the lexicons are being used. In fine-grained, you just have a set amount of options to choose from, like 1 star to 5 star. But in emotion detection, the machine has to learn what the human is trying to say based on the context and looking at the emotions more thoroughly. So then you also have aspect-based sentiment analysis, and aspect-based sentiment analysis, it like tries to find out which aspects or features people are mentioning in like a positive, neutral, or negative way. So aspect-based sentiment analysis is a lot more specific in that it's talking about a very specific aspect of the product or the service they're talking about. So for example, they're talking about like a toothbrush. If they're reviewing a toothbrush, aspect-based analysis would be like the bristles on this toothbrush or the charger on this toothbrush. It's talking about a really specific aspect of like the product that they're reviewing. So, for example, the battery life of this camera is too short. The aspect-based classifier would be able to determine that the sentence expresses a negative emotion about the feature, which is battery life. So again, comparing it to the previous ones, fine-grained sentiment analysis and emotion detection analysis, sentiment analysis, aspect-based sentiment analysis is talking about a certain aspect, while other ones are describing the overall product and using it more in a broad way. So aspect-based takes a little bit of both. And we're gonna skip this poll for now, sorry guys. I'm not too sure where Iris is. Okay, Iris.
Okay, so there are also a lot of limits to sentiment analysis.
We can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, so there are a lot of limitations.
All right. Until we can hear her, I can just begin going over this for now. So the limitations of sentiment analysis, there are quite a few because, as you can imagine, it's like a machine trying to talk to a human. And a machine only knows how to speak in like very binary language. Everything is extremely black or white. Like in a machine, using the word kill or angry or bad means the product is bad. But in a human, it could potentially be positive. So let's go over the limitations. So first of all, there's tricking the system. If words are replaced with synonyms, the system could decide on a different polarity. Because like, as you know, as humans, there are so many ways that you could describe something, and there's so many different words that you could replace, like bad or good. There are tons of words. So replacing it with even like the slightest different synonym, the system could end up deciding on a totally different polarity for that object. And then also sarcasm. When humans communicate, they use a lot of like negative meaning words to mean positive things. I can't really think of an example of sarcasm right now, but I'm sure you've all used it in your daily lives. And obviously, as you can imagine, it's extremely difficult for a machine to detect sarcasm. And through neural networks, as we talked about last class, through natural language processing, it could be a little easier to detect when like a human is joking or poking fun or whatever, or using sarcasm or irony. But still, it's extremely difficult for a machine to like look at the context of a conversation and say, oh, so she's trying to say the exact opposite of what her words are saying. So yeah, that is a big limitation of sentiment analysis. And also, there's a third one, bias data. So if the system is collecting data from Twitter, the opinion on a subject will be biased to the side with people that tweet more. So it's not truly representative. Oh wait, sorry, Iris. I think I just didn't put my earbuds on. But yeah, continue. Wait, I didn't know that we could hear you. Never mind. Go on.
Okay, I'll just continue where she was. So yeah, bias data. So I use an example here. So if the system is collecting data from an app like Twitter, lots of times the data is all from people that actually like use the app, right? So the data it collects can be biased as to like maybe who like tweets more from like this side of the opinion based on like who tweets more from the other side. So you'll get biased data. Okay, so now we have a thing called bag of words. Bag of words is a method that a computer can use to read text. And so basically, it analyzes the text as a bunch of separate words. And they make a list and label like each list like with how many times each word appears. So usually the order of the list of words does not matter, but for some methods like Bayesian probability, it does matter. Or something called n-gram, which I will explain later. So Bayesian probability is basically predictive text, where the system will guess which word will be most likely used next. So here's some vocab just to recap. I'll explain n-grams down there first since it is related to bag of words. So n-grams is like a set of n items. And so when a bag of words makes a list, it can make a list with multiple words as it appears multiple times. So sets of like 2 words for 2 items or sets of 3 words for 3 items. And these are some words that we went over earlier, like sentiment, a opinion basically, text, a piece of writing, and then another recap on sentiment analysis, which is a process that computers use to perform or measure the positivity of a text.
Yeah, there's also like, it's called like unigrams and like trigrams. So like when the words are in sets of like 1, it's called a unigram. So take for example, like, you know, the Shakespeare line, like to be or not to be, it would be like to, comma, not, comma, blah, blah. Like everything is just in one word with like a comma in between. But a trigram would be like, if it were 3 sets of like 3 sets of 3 words, it's like to be or, comma, not to be. So yeah. Okay, so sentiment analysis in the real world. We talked about this already quite a bit, but this is mainly a big tool for like businesses to use because it's hard to gauge completely what the entire population thinks about, you know, your product or your service. So taking all these reviews, customer feedback, survey responses, like comments on social media, everything like that, and kind of using machine learning to process the polarity of their comments, it makes it a lot more easier for businesses to like gauge whether their product or service is doing well. So again, using like aspect-based sentiment analysis or like emotion detection sentiment analysis, it's a lot easier for businesses to see like, oh, a lot of people are saying good. A lot of people are saying the battery is defective. A lot of people are saying like blah, blah, blah. So it kind of makes it easier instead of combing through every single comment, instead of combing through every single review on Amazon, it's a lot easier to just put this all into machine learning and get a general overview. But of course, as we said earlier, there is a lot of limitations. So yeah.
So now we have some real life examples of sentiment analysis. So here we have a program called Humanly, developed by AI for All. So this sentiment analysis program, it can determine if text online is toxic. So in the end, it can actually help to detect cyberbullying online through if it's like a text is toxic or not.
You understand your customers better. But what should you analyze to find out what your customers like? I'm Chia, and I'll be explaining this inside this video. Hey, it's Chia from Brand 24, and today I want to talk about sentiment analysis and how it can help you find out just what your customers like. So just in case anybody's wondering what is sentiment analysis in the first place, let's start by answering that question. Sentiment analysis is about taking digital text like customer reviews, threads in discussion forums on blogs or social media, things like that, and then classifying it as positive, neutral, or negative. It's a type of emotional artificial intelligence or emotion AI. So you can also analyze other feelings like fear, joy, or love. But in terms of basic business and e-commerce needs, just finding out what your customers like, it's enough to focus on positive, neutral, and negative sentiment. So what does sentiment analysis show us exactly? Well, I mean, a lot. If you look at the context of text with positive sentiment, you can see what customers like about your product, and oftentimes they'll also tell you how you can make it better for them, like with more sizes and colors to choose from. And feedback with negative sentiment is just as valuable. So let's say a customer has a bad experience with your service and leaves a really negative review for your company, like Mary here on Yelp, where everybody can see. Now, ideally, you're already tracking your customer reviews, so you would find out about this as soon as it was posted and deal with it before it got over 1,500 votes, seriously hurting your brand reputation. You can't always make a bad review online go away, but the key is to find it before it gets out of hand. And then you can decide how to take action, like with an apology, maybe a voucher, and in some cases, a really strong defense. But basically, sentiment analysis is exactly what you need to help you find out what your customers like and dislike. But unless you're doing general market research, then first you need to have something specific to analyze. And if you want to find out what your customers like or dislike, then that something is going to be customer feedback. So I'm going to show you 4 simple ways to get customer feedback, plus a couple free tools that you can use for this. So one way to get customer feedback is by creating surveys or questionnaires. You've probably taken a survey yourself at some point, and I know I have, and there's a really good chance that it was powered by SurveyMonkey. This is a great tool for creating customer surveys, and it's not the only one. There's also Survey Anyplace, which is a similar tool for building surveys, and they also have.
Okay, I feel like that was a pretty good stopping point for the video. So let's keep looking at some real life examples.
So now we have another program from this thing called Clutch. And so they use a program called the social quotient, and they can basically monitor human interaction between elderly people because elderly people are often lonely, so they can help decrease their loneliness.
Also, yeah, so it uses like that program to be able to like measure how senior people are feeling at certain points. So not only does it help them whenever they do gauge that senior people maybe want a companion or something, it uses natural language processing, which we learned about last week, to kind of gauge various words that they use and like emotion detection, sentiment analysis, like, oh, I'm kind of bored, or like, I'm feeling kind of sad. And then they can use like this program to, I guess, send people, which is very nice. So we have a discussion next. You can just drop it in the chat. I'll turn the chatting feature like so you can chat with everybody. But the first question is like, how does this help people? And I guess, what demographics does it potentially neglect?
Yeah, it helps elderly people. So do you guys see any problems with this program? So I see someone wrote that it doesn't exactly let the other kinds of people use it. Well, I guess it could be modified to help other people monitor their problems too. They can mistake boredom with loneliness, and that is very true because oftentimes, sometimes you're just bored, but you aren't actually feeling lonely, just don't have anything to do. Yeah, so actually another way this program can also help people is that it can help like the elderly people from committing suicide because they really lonely people can also get depressed. So this program is actually also really good for your mental health.
Okay, so let's also try a poll. So do you guys think that sentiment analysis can always recognize the polarity of a text correctly? Okay, so a lot of you said no. I guess that's true. It probably will never always recognize the polarity of a text correctly. I'd say maybe like 70% of the time it could recognize it because like as the human civilization like continues to evolve and like language has like more irony or sarcasm or synonyms or different like slangs start to evolve, it gets really hard for a machine to be able to keep up and continue looking at the context of every sentence that people might say. So I think that while a machine, you know, is a good effort for businesses to kind of gauge about their audience, it's still going to be really difficult like in time coming and in the future. All right, let's also do a second poll. So what type of sentiment analysis do you think was the most useful that we went over? Okay, so a lot of you said emotion detection. I think that's a pretty good answer. The only issue, as we know with emotion detection, is like mistaking negative or positive adjectives for like a different feeling than they were trying to say. I myself would probably say like fine-grained because it gives the audience like a set amount of choices, so the machine doesn't have to do that much guessing, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. And how you feel about that product is really obvious and clear for the business. Oh, sorry, I didn't share, but yeah. Um, so yeah, I myself would say fine-grained. What do you think, Iris? Iris, how would you vote in the poll?
Oh, sorry, my thing was lagging. Honestly, I think I agree with you. Fine grain is good because it gives a set amount and it's more specific.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Okay.
So we have our third example here, and this one is actually research from Griffith University in Australia. So their research, they collect data from social media posts and captions to measure the health of coral reefs. So earlier it was stated that sentiment analysis, to determine polarity, they rate text based on a scale of -1 to 1, where -1 is the most negative and +1 is the most positive. So with this analysis, the emotional tone and text can be represented, and people's opinions about the marine environment can be represented here. Therefore, it can help measure the health of the coral reefs.
Yeah, just something to add on. Also, I think social media is definitely a huge like mining field for errors in sentiment analysis because in social media is probably where you like using slang or informal language or kind of confusing adjectives is the most prevalent. And as you know, like typically it's going to be really hard for like middle age, like 50-year-old, 40-year-old scientists to also train machines to be able to recognize slang that like teenagers or younger people use. So again, social media is definitely really difficult for sentiment analysis to properly gauge stuff. But in terms of like coral reef health, it shouldn't be as difficult since it's a more like professional, serious subject. But again, just saying that social media is definitely a little harder. So I think there's another discussion after this. How do you think this guys helps the environment or humans? Oh, sorry. Yeah, it helps the environment by alerting us which coral reefs to save. Definitely true. And warn researchers. Yeah, that's also definitely true. So it's like really good at predicting trends, not only just helping coral reefs in the moment. So like, what do you got? What problems do you think the software has besides like maybe misinterpreting a social media caption or something? True, it can be harder for a computer to understand emojis maybe. Yeah, not everyone wants to save the planet. That's true. Yeah, just in general, from like the naked eye, I feel like social media isn't necessarily the best indicator or the best way for people to see what the environment like is on the outside world or see what areas of the world necessarily need saving, especially since you can alter so many things on social media as well. But it's still, as you know, like maybe the best way we have at the moment. Sentiment analysis is a pretty good option. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we have the last poll. What do you think have like a better idea? Like helping seniors or the environment? Okay, so most of you said Griffith University, which is like the coral reef one. I think that's also true. What do you think, Iris?
Yeah, I agree because Clash is actually, I guess the amount of things it can affect is smaller than when you're helping with the environment. The environment will affect more people rather than like a certain group.
Right, and I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying like environment probably takes precedence of like lonely older people. Okay, so anyways, let's move on. I think we're moving to Kahoot soon, but let me go really back to the essay contest really quickly. So we've already got like several submissions and they're all really great. We've been reading them. But just a reminder, it's really not too hard. Like it's only 300 words. You could definitely reach that in your sleep. And it's just what AI would you create. We definitely want to hear about like absolutely any AI creations. It doesn't really have to be serious even. It can be funny, just like one that you even dreamed of. Like it doesn't matter. We totally want to hear about it. And now after this lesson, you can use sentiment analysis as like a feature when you write and natural language processing, which are obviously both really useful, in the business world, and especially if you actually wanted to create your AI for an audience in the future. But yeah, we definitely want to highly encourage you to join the essay contest, even if you don't want to join the raffle or you don't want a prize, which I don't understand because that would be really cool. You can still have your name posted on the website, which would be really interesting. And you could simply win an essay contest. Even if you're in like 3rd grade, it doesn't matter, just submit something. And the link I sent earlier in the chat and also in emails, if you need the link, just send a question in. But yeah, and also a reminder for the guest speaker next Friday at 10 a.m. And that's when we'll be having like our raffle. We've been noting the Kahoot winners. Definitely try your hardest on the Kahoot today because it's your last chance to maybe win something. Like, as we said, it's like video games, e-gift cards in case you have issues with like dropping off physical things, AI like robot toys, just like cool gadgets. And so let's do the Kahoot now. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to share the Kahoot. Give me one sec. While we're waiting, is there anything you want to say, Iris?
Not one.
All right, let's play Kahoot. All right, let's get started. What is a bag of words? Yeah, so it's a method of analyzing text as a list of all the words used. Nice. Congrats, George. True or false? Sentiment analysis is always accurate. Nice. Nice, George. All right. What is Bayesian probability like? Oh, congrats, Nikki Shi. So, what is sentiment analysis? I feel like this one should be pretty easy. Yeah, so it's measuring the polarity. Okay. A lot of you also chose teaching a robot to feel emotions like humans. Okay, so that's like, I guess, a byproduct of that, but it's not like what sentiment analysis is trying to do. You're kind of teaching it to read emotions and like measure the polarity of stuff, but you're not really teaching it how to become a human, if that makes sense. Sorry if that was a little confusing. George is back and Annie. Nice. So what is a hybrid system? Nice, Annie. So neural networks can be trained to detect sarcasm, true or false. Yeah, so it's true. Even though it'll be really hard, neural networks are like an option to detecting sarcasm, more or less. Obviously, it's not going to get it 100% of the time, but you can definitely train it a little bit. Nice, George. So, true or false? Order matters. Right, it doesn't. Okay. Which program can help the coral reef environment? Right, Griffith University. Quatch was like the old people one. Humanly, I don't even know what that is. All right, next question. Congrats, Matthew. All right, so yeah, I guess humanly is the one towards cyberbullying, Quatch is the one helping elderly, and Griffith is the one for the environment. Oh, well, I just said the answer. All right. Yeah, right. Congrats, Matthew. Also, it's kind of ironic winner's not even in first place. Anyways, next question. What is an example of this might be kind of confusing, just look at the numbers. Okay, yeah, so it's a bag of words, and remember here, order does matter. Congrats, Matthew, again. So, how can sentiment analysis help businesses? Right, so customer feedback and reviews are both ways they can help. Congrats, Matthew, again. Okay, how does rule-based algorithms in sentiment analysis work? So that's basically the definition of it. Congrats, Matthew, again. All right. What is the downside of emotion detection in sentiment analysis? Or that type of sentiment analysis, I mean. So, yeah. Congrats, Matthew. One more question. So, what is an example of a unigram anagram? Right, yeah, so it's like one word, like two, comma, B, comma, sets, basically. All right, so that is the end. Congrats, you guys. If you got 4th or 5th place, I don't know who the 5th place person is, but if you want a prize, make sure you say your full name in the chat or like send it to one of us. It doesn't matter. Basically, thank you guys. Let me turn that volume. Thank you so much for attending the last session of Code a Wish AI 101. We had a lot of fun with all of you this summer, and we're totally looking forward to meeting some of you in person when the pandemic is over or whatever. We totally suggest and encourage you guys to submit to the essay contest again, and of course, attend the guest speaker session next Friday at 10 a.m. I'll email you guys again. Even if you like don't like our classes, I'm sure you'll like meeting like the CEO of In Silico Medicine. He's really, really cool, and the work that he does is really amazing. So I totally suggest you guys join next Friday at 10 a.m., not 5 p.m., 10 a.m. Submit to the essay contest, and congrats to everyone who was winning Kahoot for prizes. We'll talk about that next Friday or whatever. So thank you so much. Anything else you want to say, Iris?
Oh no, just thank you guys all for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.